Om Sat Gurubhyo Namaha. My pranams to my Paramaguru, Padma Bhushan, Dr. Padma Subramanian. Namaskaram to one and all. I am Aishwarya Harish, the Cultural Coordinator for Nrityodaya, the Academy of Performing Arts, Mumbai. We are very happy to have all of you join in today for Session 13, Season 2 of the Young Researchers Forum. This forum is a joint initiative of Nrityodaya Mumbai and the Center for Excellence, Art and Culture, Shasan Jain College for Women. We've had an extremely enriching Season 1 that covered a wide range of research topics, and we hope Season 2 is going to be equally engaging. We bring to you today's Session 13 with a very interesting topic related to the field of yoga. We begin today's session on an auspicious note with a prayer rendition.
Pranamami Patanjalim Pranamami Patanjalim Pranamami Patanjalim Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarotam Pravaram Munina Patanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi Abahu Purushakaram Shankha Chakra Sadharinam Sahasrashirasam Shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim Pranamami Patanjalim Pranamami Patanjalim.
Thank you so much for that very soulful prayer rendition. I would now like to invite Dr. Jayashree Rajagopalan, Director, Nrityodaya, the Academy of Performing Arts, Mumbai, to kindly present the welcome address.
Om Sat Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaskaram. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all of you for this session of the Young Researchers Forum conducted by our institution, Nrityodaya, the Academy of Performing Arts, Mumbai, in association with the Center of Excellence, Art and Culture, Shankarlal Sundarbai Shasan Jain College for Women, Chennai. We've been very fortunate to have the entire series inaugurated by our revered guru, Dr. Padma Subramaniam, Padma Bhushan awardee. In 2020, I'm extremely grateful to you, Paduka, for being a pillar of support and a source of encouragement and inspiration for us. A warm welcome to you. The expert for this session is Srimati Smriti Rekha Adinarayan, co-founder of Anand Foundation. She would be speaking on a very unique area of application of yoga, and this is understanding the mind from a yogic perspective. We are very happy to welcome you, Srimati Rekha, and we're looking forward for a very enriching session.
Thank you, Dr. Jayashree. I would now like to invite Dr. Rajshri Vasudevan, Director, Center for Excellence, Art and Culture, Shasan Jain College, to kindly introduce our speaker for this evening.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. It gives me great pleasure to introduce a researcher, scholar of great standing, Srimati Smriti Rekha Adinarayan, for Season 2, Session 13 of the Young Researchers Forum. She is the co-founder of Anadi Foundation. And she's going to speak on a very interesting topic, understanding the mind from a yogic perspective. Anadi Foundation is a non-profit organization and a Dharma Gurukulam. Steering committee member of Gurukulam, a consortium of individuals and organizations synthesizing various educational philosophies. Mentor Center for Research in Ecology and Sustainable Technologies, Anadi, CREST, CREST. In academics, she is an MS in Information Systems from the State University of New York, USA, and Amrita University, 2010. She has a Bachelor of Engineering degree in Computer Science and Engineering from Madurai Kamaraj University, 2002. She is a Fellow of the European SPES, Spirituality in Economics and Society Institute. Her experience is very widespread and diverse. She has 10 years of academic experience and 4 years of educational technologies research experience in Amrita University. She is a visiting faculty from 2015 and exchange researchers 2010-11 at University of L'Aquila, Italy. She has 4 years of experience as Senior Research Fellow, Amrita Create Labs. She was invited to the Summer Research School in Netherlands in June 2017. She is the adjunct faculty at School of Innovation, Kumaraguru College of Technology, visiting faculty for Data Science course, Madras School of Social Work, Chennai, and core group member of MHRD Panel Designing National Level Value Education Program for schools in the country. Her publications are several, a few of them designing microcredit courses on yoga, Indian culture and knowledge systems at educational institutions, organizing committee member of Mind, Meditation and Human Values Workshop, NRCVEE, IIT Delhi. She was invited by MHRD, Government of India, to Chintan Shivir, a national workshop to discuss recommendations and brainstorm on future course of school education in India. She has designed Anadi Foundation's Village Integrated Basic Education, known as the VIBE Initiative. She is involved with the design and implementation of social and spiritual initiatives, including rural education, healthcare programs, rural development, online and in-person programs based on yoga, Vedanta, Itihasa, drawing insights from modern science. She has published numerous papers in computer science and engineering. So it's our pleasure to welcome and have as our resource person, Srimati Smriti Rekha Adinarayan, on a very interesting topic, combining science and yoga. Over to you.
Namaste. Welcome to this session on understanding the mind from a yogic perspective. This is Smriti Adinarayan, and I'm the co-founder of Anadi Foundation. Our ashram is located near Payani in Tamil Nadu. And at the ashram, we have a dhyanalayam where people can meditate, a goshala, and a gurukulam where children above the age of 10 years learn Indian knowledge systems. Let us begin this session with an invocation. Om Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidhyakena Yopakarotam Pravaram Muninam Patanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. We bow down to Patanjali Maharishi, who gave us the Darshana Shastra of yoga, tremendous contribution to the Darshana of yoga, and who has created this system for the purification of the entire, the chitta and various processes that we have, so that we may attain higher and higher states of consciousness. In this session, we're going to understand or decode the mind from a yogic perspective. Understanding the mind is always an interesting thing, isn't it? That is why a lot of students, young people, take to psychology, because they always want to know what is happening inside this black box. Many a times we are not aware of the various processes that are going on inside. We know that we are angry, we know that we are sad only in retrospective. When we are angry, when we are sad, we are completely immersed in that experience. But once that experience is over, once we come out of it, we reflect on it and say that, oh, I was angry at that time. I was not feeling so very happy. I was feeling depressed. I did not like this. But when we are going through that situation, we are completely immersed without even being aware of the state of mind. And that is the whole beauty. That is the whole, what you can say, Maya, or that is the whole veil that makes us experience this world of reality. Otherwise, if we are always aware and self-conscious, imagine that our life would look so artificial, right? So this immersion is what helps us to experience life without any obstacles, but this can also become an obstacle to higher states of consciousness. And that is what our rishis have told us. This is what our rishis have experienced and handed down to us. And of course, as young people, we don't, many of us or many of you, in fact, don't realize these things because everyday life is very different from a person who's gone through a lot of worldly experiences. For young people, it is about college life. It is about going through daily assignments, going through knowledge systems, interacting with people, having relationships with with fellow students, with the teacher, with parents, with everybody in the society. So it is all about this small world around us, the small universe around us. And hence, we don't really get time or opportunities to reflect on it so much unless and until we face some obstacle in life. And obstacles can be of many types. And let's decode the mind from a yogic perspective today. So what is the mind actually? We've never taken the time to understand that. In fact, you would have talked, listened to philosophers, read about it. I think, therefore I am. Because, the whole experience of myself is the thinking process. That is what modern psychology or Western psychology is speaking about. So what is the mind? The mind can be looked at as a collection of all thoughts, emotions, memory, and sensations. It's like constant chatter that is going on here. If you just close your eyes and then try to sit for a moment, there are these millions and zillions of thought processes going on within ourselves, right? It could be a list of to-do, it could be chatter about our friends, about our relationships, scolding somebody or thinking about somebody or praising somebody, thinking about our favorite food. It's those zillions of connections that are constantly happening in our mind. And that is why it is difficult for many of us to sit peacefully, right? A couple of minutes we try to sit, that is when we remember the whole list of things to do. And in fact, some psychologists or some, the modern perspective talks about mind as an emergent property of the brain. Because the brain is there, the mind has emerged from that. Because of the neurons are there, the consciousness has emerged from that. There are different perspectives in the Western psychological paradigm. And one cannot say that all this is wrong. There is no comparison saying this Indic philosophy versus modern philosophy, but just that, the mind from a certain perspective, ours looks at it from a different perspective. And that is what we're going to learn today, right? When we look at the Indian perspective, you have two things. Bahya Karana, which is the outer instruments which help us to act out in this world. And the Antarkarana, which is the inner instrument or the inner instruments, which helps us to cognize about things, which helps us to think about things, which helps us to make sense of things. For example, how do you make sense of this reality? When you look at certain things with your eyes, then your eyes basically looks at the object, and then there are some processes that happen in the brain. There are some signaling mechanisms that happen. And then based on whatever you have in your memory already, you look at that object and then you recognize that object. So primarily, we interact and learn from the world through our senses, isn't it? And when we learn through our senses, it forms certain impressions in our mind, and it also forms certain memories. And based on that, we acquire newer knowledge, we compare with the existing knowledge, we acquire newer and newer impressions, and that is how we travel in this journey called life. And over a period of time, zillions of impressions are formed without even knowing about it. Right? Some conscious impressions, some unconscious impressions. So when we look at the Anthakarana, we call, there are 4 dimensions to it. Manas, Chitta, Buddhi, Ahamkara. Right? So when we say Manas, it is basically that indeterminate thinking that is happening in your mind. It's the mind basically. Constant flow of thoughts and emotions without any specific direction to it. It thinks about, it is sometimes it is coming to a convergence, sometimes it is going into a confusion, sometimes it seems to come to some kind of determination, but then again it opens up without any boundaries. So basically it is sanchala. Chanchala keeps happening, right? Confusions, doubts keep happening in the mind. And there is a lot of visualizations, imaginations, all these things actually go on in the manas. The chitta is basically the storehouse of all impressions. What happens, as I told you, when you go through the sensory experiences through your eyes, through your ears, through the skin, tongue, and the other senses, all these form impressions. And then you need a storehouse for all these impressions, like the hard disk, right? In the computer, you have the hard disk. Whatever processes are going on through, it is basically stored in the hard disk. Right? And that is the chitta, which is the storehouse of all impressions. And what happens is that once there is a lot of thoughts, emotions, there is the storehouse of all these impressions, you need a specific direction to be able to make some decisions. And that is the buddhi. Nishchayatmikam buddhi. It has a definite flow. It has a specific path. It helps you to make decisions. And it is not boundaryless like the mind. And it is very, very, what you can say, concrete that way. So that is called the buddhi, with which we make decisions. It is the intellect. And ahamkara is basically the idea of doership. I am doing this. I am the one who is going through this experience. It is me. So that specific concrete identification or identity is called the ahamkara. Many people say it's ego is bad, ahamkara is bad. The negative aspects of ahamkara are definitely bad, because what happens is that it creates a certain barriers to our happy functioning in the society. Suppose, for example, you are in a team contributing to the teamwork. But then all of a sudden we have this feeling that, oh, I am the one doing all the work. Nobody else is doing. I am the one who ensured that the output was delivered. Nobody else seems to be doing anything. So it is very easy to get into the mode that I am the doer. I am the only one doing the whole thing, and there was no other contributing factor. In fact, Bhagavan Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, specifically warns us about this feeling. When he talks about karma yoga, he says that action is in your hands, but what determines the result? There are so many factors that contribute to the result. So it's very easy to get into the trap of the ego. But however, when we are growing up, right from childhood, we need this ahamkara, isn't it? Otherwise, how would we know I am that person? In fact, if you have observed children, for example, the child's name is Arun. The child would ask, Arunukku pasikirudhu. Arun is feeling hungry. Arun wants to sleep. Arun wants this particular thing. So the child would refer to himself or herself with the name. So it means that the name and the body and the form is yet to get attached. Then after a few years or after a few months, then they start using it. I want this, I want that. So it means that ahamkara is still building. And it is very important to build the ahamkara in a positive way, by positive reinforcement. Appreciating the child for doing, everything, simple things. If they do a simple task like, singing a song, telling a rhyme, writing something, giving them the appropriate appreciation and due recognition really builds up the ahamkara in a positive way. Even for students, you would have observed this, right? In fact, for teachers, how do I develop a good ahamkara of a teacher? When my students really appreciate me for what I am doing, then I really feel, yes, I am a good teacher. But then if students are indifferent to what is happening in my class, then what do I feel? I feel very let down, right? And hence that positive reinforcement, the full development of the ahamkara in a positive way is very important. And that gives us the involvement identity to do things. So the Indic perspective looks at the antakarna as manas, chitta, buddhi and ahamkara. And this is also brought out in the yogic thought process as follows, especially focusing on the chitta. So when we say yoga, since we are looking at the mind from a yogic perspective, let us look at what yoga is. Yoga, in the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, Maharishi Patanjali actually defines yoga as yogas chitta vritti nirodha. That is, cessation of all mental processes or the modifications of the mind is called the state of yoga. So does it mean that it's a certain thoughtless state? It is a state where those ripples are not there. Imagine a lake and you throw a stone into the lake. Then what happens? The still waters, a lot of ripples are created, and then they settle down, and then there is the still lake, right? That state of stillness is called yoga. That state of samadhi is called yoga. Samadhi is a very equanimous state, without any ripples, without any confusions, without any doubts, or without certain mental processes. Are we dead then? No. We are very much alive, just that we are connected to a larger scheme of awareness. Not just awareness about the specific body or the specific identity, but a larger sense of awareness and an expansion of consciousness. In fact, people who go through the experience of samadhi, you might have read their experience as they start, they're losing the boundary of the self. No more it is like, I am this particular identity, this is outside of me. Everything comes to a very unified experience, and that unified experience is the state of samadhi. It's a very beautiful experience, which is way beyond description of words. But nevertheless, our rishis and yogis have brought out this knowledge system so that we work towards achieving this particular state. One can feel, I am a student, I am a teacher, I'm just, limited identity. What is the state of samadhi even relevant to me? But nevertheless, you would have all seen that at some point in time in our lives, we feel very limited by our own identity, right? When we are a child, we want to break free of the identity and grow up into an adult. Right? We feel limited. The small body, the small mind, we don't want to have that. We want to grow up like an adult. And when we are an adult, when we are a student, we want to break free of this identity and experience a larger sense of freedom. And hence, at every point in time, we always go through this process of feeling limited by our own identities and wanting to expand. And this motivates us to take up certain processes, which helps us to get an expanded sense of the self. And yoga is definitely one of the parts. So yoga is the cessation of the modifications of the mind. Yoga's chitta vritti nirodha, the state of samadhi. So the Yoga Sutra, it talks about what is the goal to be achieved. It is the goal to be achieved is the state of samadhi, which is the removal of the vrittis. But there are obstacles in doing so. What are the obstacles? The kleshas. The obstacles, these kleshas are impurities or pains that we experience. And how to remove them? Through the sadhana, through the path of sadhana, kriya yoga, ashtanga yoga, all this is mentioned in the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, some of you are already practicing through your yoga classes, through your readings. Already you are introduced to some of these principles. So when we say removal of the vrittis, what are actually the vrittis? He talks about 5 vrittis, pancha vrittis. Pramana viparyaya vikalpa nidra smriti. He talks about 5 vrittis. Pramana is basically the valid source of knowledge. Viparyaya is incorrect knowledge. Vikalpa is imagination. The nidra is sleep and smriti is memory. These are the 5 vrittis. Why are these vrittis? Let us look at this. Whenever you are acting with your senses, right? You're always thinking outward. So you're looking at the tree, immediately you're cognizing it and you're validating it. Yes, this is a tree based on your prior knowledge. Or you look at a lamppost and think it's a tree. Again, some kind of a false knowledge is going on. Or you close your eyes and think about an imaginary situation. Again, imagination is going on. Or you are in a state of deep sleep, or you are forming those impressions. So these processes are constantly going on within you. And then that's why these are called vrittis. So what happens is that when these processes cease to exist or become very regulated, and that is the state of yoga. Otherwise, this constant chattering of learning new things, taking up new things through the senses, processing them, forming impressions, or going through the state of sleep, these constantly keep happening, right? And that is why these are vrittis. And what happens is that these vrittis are also impaired by the kleshas. Let us take an example. Suppose you are in a very happy state of mind, right? And you come to college in a very happy mood that day for whatever reason. So your experience, whatever you record in your memory on that particular day, is all happy experiences. You look at college life in a very positive light that day. So what happens is that whatever you record in your memory depends on your state of mind that day, right? Suppose you're in a very sad state and then you're listening to a lecture. The whole experience of the lecture is very, very depressing that day. And hence the impression of that particular incident in whatever his memory is formed is not quite happy that day. So what happens is that there is a filter of the mind that is there, which prevents you from experiencing whatever is there in reality. It could be happiness, it could be sorrow, it could be many other things. And hence, whatever is recorded, whatever knowledge you are getting, or whatever is recorded in the memory changes with how your state of mind is, whatever your emotions you are going through. Suppose you're looking at, suppose you're already colored because of some emotion. When you look at a person, only those emotions come out. Only those impressions come out. And hence, your assessment of that particular person is colored by these various emotions. And hence, you have a very different perception of reality at that point. And hence, the vrittis are there, and hence the kleshas are also there. The obstacles are typically the kleshas. And what are the kleshas? The kleshas include avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. 5 kleshas. Don't be intimidated by these Sanskrit terms. These are all practical experiences that we go through, only that we have to become aware of these experiences. Avidya. What is avidya? Ignorance. Ignorance of who we really are, right? We are always limited by our identities. We always think we are only a student, I am only a child, I am only a daughter, I am only a teacher. It is useful for a specific identity. From 9 to 5, being a teacher is useful. But if we carry that identity everywhere, then how do we experience the larger sense of the self, right? And hence what happens is that we become very limited by our identity, and that is avidya, ignorance of our true self. Asmita, constant I-ness. I am the doer, I am doing this, I am that. That constant I-ness is there. And our experiences are also dependent on our likes and dislikes in life. Suppose I like a particular subject, say, for example, psychology. You love psychology. That could be because of the teacher who teaches psychology. You really like the way the teacher teaches. And because of that, you like the subject. And because of that, your preferences, you always choose domains which are related to psychology. Suppose you are a person who likes a very cool temperature, right? You always travel to places where the temperature is low, and hence your actions are determined by your preferences. Suppose you're a person who doesn't like, say, bitterness, right? Bitter taste. So you avoid all kinds of medicines, kashayams, Ayurvedic medicines, Siddha medicines, which are bitter in taste. Probably you would go to the ones that are sweet and chewable. So what happens is that our actions in life are determined by our preferences. And it can be quite strong that way. Even in choosing friends, in choosing books, in choosing learning environments, in choosing movies, we exercise these preferences. In fact, what happens is that you all use social media, and the algorithms are actually written to track your preferences. You like certain kind of videos, you like certain kind of, say, Instagram posts. The algorithm learns your preferences and keeps throwing them out to you. In fact, that is how reality works as well. The more we engage with certain preferences, the more the same kind of situations keep happening to us, because the larger algorithms to learn. It all sounds mystical, but believe me, it's quite a reality. That is what has been my personal experience, both with the Facebook algorithms and the algorithm of life as well. We exhibit certain preferences, and those are the situations that we go through. And of course, the grace of the Guru, or grace of the divine, or grace of the parents, we also encounter opposing situations which really help us to learn and come out of these limited preferences. And hence, there are these likes and dislikes of life. And of course, fear of death. In fact, Maharishi Patanjali says that even the yogis are not spared from the fear of death. It is our natural instinct to protect ourselves, right? So what happens, we don't get into situations where there is a threat of life. And that can sometimes be a limitation. Not everybody gets into the army. Not everybody gets into complicated yogic postures, because there is a sense of self-preservation that we always have. We try to preserve our identity, we try to preserve our preferences, we try to preserve the body, and don't get into situations where there is a violation of these principles. In fact, you would have heard about aghoris. You would have watched them in movies or seen them, say, in the ghats of Varanasi. They really go through this fear of, they really transcend this fear of death by really encountering these complex situations. What we shun away as disgusting, they actually go through those situations. By just being in those situations, they transcend those limitations. That is why they're called aghoris. They go through those very, very difficult situations, which we shun away from. That is why they're not commonly mingling in the society, because they are in these disgusting situations, so-called disgusting situations. Really, we bow pranams to their effort. And then they transcend these limitations. They go beyond the fear of death. But then in our own limited situations, you're a student, you're a teacher, you're a faculty, you are in the educational institution. We always see that we have some amount of self-preservation. It's difficult to give our 100% to something, because we become conscious of ourselves and we try to preserve some part of ourselves. But then when we give our 100% involvement without a certain fear, then we really experience very, very deep states, be it our work, be it yoga, or be it our relationships, or whatever it is. In fact, young people find it difficult to commit to any kind of relationship because of the self-preserving attitude. They think that, what if I lose my freedom? What if I lose my preferences? If I get into certain relationships. In fact, I have heard that many young people are afraid to get married, or have some resistance to getting married because of the self-preserving approach or attitude, because they feel that their freedom is lost when they commit to that relationship. But my own personal experience has been that when we give 100% to something, that it's actually not a big problem. Relationships can be very smooth, and it's actually not a big deal at all. Just that one has to go through a certain reflection, one has to go through certain experiences, and then one realizes that it's not a big deal after all. Of course, you're all quite young, you still have a long journey to take. But nevertheless, you will encounter many of these situations where you will be challenged, by your own limitations. It could be simple situations, complex situations. At those times, reflecting on one's own thought process, adopting certain practices can really help you to transcend those limitations. And what is the solution? When we look at the mind, we see the Vrittis, the Kleshas. We need to remove those kleshas. We need to attain a state of peace and calm within ourselves. And the solution that Maharishi Patanjali gives is yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, which are the Ashtanga Yoga. He talks about values first, and then the actions that are to be taken. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. These are the 8 aspects of yoga. So what are yama and niyama? He says ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha, aryama, shaucha, santosha, tapaswadhyaya, ishvara pranidhana are niyama. Don't be, as I told you, don't be intimidated by these words. But these are simple things that already all of you are introduced to. Ahimsa. We need to have a certain peaceful approach within ourselves so that nobody feels threatened in our presence. You would have typically seen a student's experience. I myself have been a chief warden of the ladies' hostel. Just by the title, chief warden, but there is a certain unapproachability to the whole thing, right? But then when we are with an approach of ahimsa, when we are with a certain openness within ourselves, without a non-threatening attitude, then people very smoothly connect with us. Satya, being honest, so that we don't have any sanchala in our mind. Otherwise, we have to keep a list of lies that we have told to people, so that when we meet them the next time, we have to hold on to that lies. Why have that whole hash table of lies? Just do away with it. Be honest, so that the chitta is very clear. Asteya, non-stealing, not taking others' possession. Always, otherwise we'll have to keep it hidden. And that creates a lot of, what you can say, restlessness in our mind. Brahmacharya. In the yogic path, Brahmacharya is a very key aspect. Not getting into these confusing relationships. Being true to the purpose of whatever one has taken up without, getting distracted with other things. That's a very important aspect. Aparigraha, non-hoarding. What happens is that I need this, let this be with me. I need 15 dresses. I need these clothes. Only then I become happy. We feel complete only when we hoard things. But when we simplify our life, then it's really easy to get the path of yoga. Our mind becomes very simplified that way. We don't have to hold on to too many thoughts. See, for example, Anadi Foundation is a rapidly growing organization. We started in 2015. In a rapidly growing organization, especially since we have a background in yoga, in a rapidly growing organization, hundreds of possibilities keep coming, right? You can diversify along these lines. You can start a Gurukulam, you can start a yoga institution, you can start an Ayurveda institution, Ayurveda hospital. Hundreds of possibilities come every day in our way. But then what happens is that one can always get carried away by these 100 possibilities. Put your time and effort and money and everything into that. Or one can prioritize in terms of what is truly needed for the society and keep things very simple. That is where our yogic background really has helped in filtering out, saying that, these are some things that we don't want to do. These are something that really are valuable to the society, and we put our energies into it. So that way what happens is that everything becomes an act of seva. Nothing is really for yourself. At that time, it becomes a very easy process to deal with. Otherwise, it's always like hoarding, I need this, self-preservation and other things. So this aparigraha is a truly yogic quality. Shaucha, cleanliness is very important. The place where you do yoga, the inner attitude to yoga, everything is important. So having a simple place, having a clean place, having simple priorities in life really accelerates on the yogic. Santosha, happiness, just as outer cleanliness, inner cleanliness is also important. Tapas, following some austerities. Swadhyaya, having a daily routine of studying, be it Bhagavad Gita, could be some inspiring works of Swami Vivekananda, or reading about Mirabai, so that one attains Bhakti Bhava. Could be anything. Could be reading the stories of great inspiring people. That really, which is in alignment with Sanatana Dharma. That is Swadhyaya. Ishvara Pranidhana, we always know that in spite of all that we do, there is a higher divine power that is always guiding us. So submitting to this higher power is Ishvara Pranidhana. Asana is a set of postures. Pranayama is the modification of the breath. Pratyahara is withdrawal of the senses. Dharana is basically attention and focus. Dhyana is meditation, and Samadhi is the state of unified experience. So these are the 8 aspects of yoga. And these really help, when adopted in a systematic manner, helps us to attain higher and higher states of consciousness. And what happens is that we start really understanding who we really are. And when people used to come to Ramana Maharishi asking questions, then he used to ponder over this question, who am I? When we are young people, this question doesn't really engage us, interest us. But then what happens when we are faced with certain challenges? That is when we truly start introspecting. What is the purpose of my life? Why am I really here? Why am I going through this education? Who are these people in my life, and who am I really? When this situation comes, these tools really come handy. And that is when we start becoming really curious about the mind. We start becoming curious about who we really are. And at that time, the support of the scriptures, the support of a guru, the support of an Ishta Devata, the support of our parents, elders at home, and our own support, standing on our own firmness, really helps to solve many of these or answer many of these questions. So with this, we come to the end of this session, and I hope you have been able to sort of understand the mind from a yogic perspective, looking at the manas, chitta, buddhi, and ahankara, removal of the vrittis, and understanding what is an obstacle there. In terms of the kleshas, ignorance, our preferences can become truly an obstacle to experiencing reality the way it is, right? When our mind becomes, for example, in Tamil they say, "Arandavanukku irundadallam pei," or people who have jaundice, everything seems yellow. So when we are clouded by our emotions, the reality appears very, very different. When this clears up, the reality, the true picture emerges from there. And removing this, what you can say, the veil, is the process of yoga. So I would encourage all of you to take up a few yogic practices, spend some time with yourselves, reflecting about various things you're going through in your body, in your mind, and trying to understand what is really going on within ourselves. That can really, more than understanding others, when we start understanding ourselves, we get a better picture of others as well, because it's, in fact, everything is a reflection of who we really are. So hope this session was useful for all of you. Just probably let's spend a minute in quietness and then conclude this session. Please close your eyes and observe how your breath is traveling in and out of your body comfortably, without an obstacle. It's just going in and out of your body. Pay attention to your breathing. Pay attention to your breathing. This mind is actually a powerful tool that helps us to interact in this world. But just that it can become complicated sometimes because of the various confusions, doubts, restlessness that we have. Through a systematic process, all this can be removed and a clear mind can be achieved. That is the path of yoga. Nothing is inherently bad, but the filters we carry make certain things appear bad or good or whatever it is. But once those filters go away, the truth emerges, and all of us have the possibility to see it. Om Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gently open your eyes, and thank you for being part of today's session. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Smriti Rekha Adinarayan, for that very insightful paper. Because very often people try to bring about a big gap between the two fields of spirituality and science, and you have very effectively bridged that gap. So thank you so much for agreeing to be a resource person and sharing your insights on a very interesting and relevant topic. I would like to thank at the outset our revered Guru, Dr. Padma Subramaniam, Padma Bhushan awardee, for constantly guiding us, bringing us so far, giving us the confidence to arrange these sessions. Thank you so much, Paduka, for all the support that you give us time and again. I would be failing in my duty if I do not thank Mr. Ramesh and Mahindra Finance for their support for Nrityodaya Academy of Performing Arts, Mumbai. From the Center of Excellence, Art and Culture, Sri Shankarlal Sundarbai Shasun Jain College for Women, we take the opportunity to thank our Honorary Secretary General, Sri Abhay Shishimal Jainji, our Secretary, Srimati Usha Abhay Kumar Shishimal, our Associate Secretary, Dr. Harish Mehta, our Principal, Dr. S. Padmavati, Vice Principal, Dr. S. Rukmani, the staff who have been listening into our efforts, and of course, all those who have joined us time and again from our college. We would like to thank our tech team from Shashun, Srimati Srividya, who has been sharing all the screens for us, the melodious rendition of the prayer song, the MC Srimati Aishwarya Harish, and the welcome address by Dr. Jayashree Rajagopalan. Thank you to all our listeners, and do post your questions on the chat box in FB, and our resource person will answer it in the chat box itself. Thank you so much once again, and Shubharatri.